Hello guys, welcome to Bonquiz Deep Take. Here, in this episode, we are gonna discuss some very common interview questions, and this is a series that is going on. And stay tuned towards different topics that we discuss in this series. Today, we are gonna talk about something which often comes under different formats or different variations, which is on Args and Kwargs. So there are different types of questions, interview questions that come up on this, especially if you're appearing for Python development positions. So we will discuss about Args and Kwargs in detail so that you can answer any of those questions properly. So let's go to Google Colab. Okay. So, first of all, let's start with a very small function. So, you know how to define functions in Python, right? Say, let's define one function and it takes some inputs or arguments. Let's say it takes one argument A and another argument B, and then it returns A plus B. So, this is a very easy function that I've defined. And let's see. So, my func and if I just put two values, any two values, 3 and 7, it should return the addition of those. The result should be the addition of those. Here, the input arguments are A and B. So we are well aware of all the input arguments that are going into the function. But in some complex scenarios, sometimes we do not know about all the arguments that are going to come into the function. So there might be a variable number of input arguments. In such scenarios where there are there can be a chance of a variable number, like it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be any number. If there's a chance of variable number of arguments that can be used as input in the function, then we used args and quirks. So let's start with another function now. Let's say my let's define it like this. My example func. So now, when is arg used and when is kwarg used? So the main difference is whether it is keyword based or just positional. Let me try to elaborate on that. So args is used to pass a variable number of non-keyword arguments. It allows you to basically pass any number of arguments which are just positional. So if I just say, and how do we basically write this? We write just like this, args, and so now I can basically input any number of positional arguments that are non-keyword based. So it doesn't have to be keyword based. So I can write something like just to showcase how this might work. Let's actually try to print out all the arguments uh, and let's print this. Okay, so this is my function that I've defined. So it takes on variable number. So since I have written it like this way, star args, it can now take variable number of arguments as input and they will be non-keyword based. So let's define it. And now if I say my example func, I can just input something like as you have seen, the main difference from my initial basic function is that here I have already said like my func take just two arguments, right? A and B. A and B can be anything, and they need to be able. They should be they should be allowed to basically add in some way. So even for strings, if I just I haven't declared A B as integers or floats or strings, so everything is possible in these scenarios, right? But it cannot be more than two. It has to be A and B only. But in this scenario, my example func, since I've said star args, I can put any number of non-keyword based arguments. Say, for example, I can give 1, 2, 3. I just put three arguments. And if I just run it, you would see it just print like since my function is basically goes through all the arguments and print them. So it just prints all the arguments for me, 1, 2, 3. Let's say I try to put more than three. Let's say let's put some strings here. let's say AB, then let's add BAC, just some random strings, ABBA, then BBA, BBRA, whatever. So now I have put four strings, and if I just run it again, it should return me all those four strings. So now you understand the difference, right? For my func, if I just put, just to showcase you, if I just put more than two or just one, it should throw me an error. If I just say, let's say A or E, it should provide me an error. Yes, type error. Why? Because it says my func missing one required positional argument, that is B. So you understand. Similar, it would be similar if I just put more than two as well. Like say for example, I put 6, 7, and 8. It would say it should just take two arguments, but three were given. So you understand, right? But for in this scenario, when I'm putting it like star args, then you can take any number of arguments that you want to include. As I said, args is used to pass a variable number of non-keyword arguments. Now, what is this about non-keyword? If you've seen here, I am not using any keyword, but you have seen a lot of codes where we use keywords, right? Say, for example, uh, let's define another function, call it name. Here, what we do, we can say name equals to and a particular name, say Alice. Okay, and then we print, yeah, hello name sounds good. Hello name. So let's say this is our function. We take a name. This is a keyword. Okay. So now we have said like the keyword value is Alice. So say for example, if I put name, which is our function, and say Bob, let's put under this. So what should it provide me? It should provide me hello Bob, because this is how my function works. So here the name, it's a keyword. This is why whenever we were talking about star args, we were always saying that it allows us to pass a variable number of non-keyword arguments. But suppose we have few keyword arguments. What can we use? We can now use star star kwargs. So kwargs, so star star kwargs. So kwargs basically stands for keyword arguments. Okay, so now we will use this and see how it changes our function. Let's define another function then, which actually takes up few keyword variables. Okay, keyword arguments. Let's say, let's define the function as my second example func. Yep. And yes, so it kind of auto completes for me for what I wanted to do. So what I'm doing, because it should have a key as well as value. So what we are doing, we are basically iterating over quarks.items, and we are printing the key as well as value. Let's run this. It ran. Now let's say I say uh, my second example func, and now I can basically provide variable number of keyword based arguments. Variable number, so it can be one, it can be two, it can be any number of keyword based arguments. I can say one, say name, and name can be a string, say for example again Alice. Then I can provide another keyword based argument, say age, which can be an float value, let's say 12.5. And I can provide another string, say gender, which is again a string, let's say it's female, right? And I can, if I just run it, you would see I'll print here all these keys and values. So name is Alice, age is 12.5, gender is female. So you understand the difference between star args and star star kwargs now, right? So kwargs basically, so both are kind of similar in nature, which is basically they help you to pass a variable number of keyword arguments or non-keyword arguments. If you have keyword arguments, then you use kwargs. If you have non-keyword arguments, then you use just star args. Okay. So let's this all these functions that I was doing was pretty I would say introductory, let's just try slightly difficult or slightly complex function to showcase just a real world example where you need to basically do like where you might actually need to use these certain things, right? So let's think of an example where we need to create a log event. Let's say we are creating a logging function uh, for some application. So we have an application and we want a function to produce log events, okay, for our application. Now we can do it multiple way. Let's try to use Quarks for this, and how we are going to use this. Let's define a function called uh, yeah, logging. Oh, let's call it logging. Yeah, but not a function. Okay. Now, what are the arguments that it can have? Let's say it can have, first of all, let's provide a definitive keyword, which is level. And then let's just say star quotes, quotes. Okay. What does it mean? It means that the level argument must be there. And apart from level, there can be any number of like a variable number of keyword based arguments that I can use in the logging function. Okay, so now first of all let's just for clarity let's not make it very complex. First of all, print the level. We can just say, and we can use f string over here. So log level is, and then in third bracket, second bracket, you just write level. So you know what I'm doing here, right? So you can, so in Python, especially the newer versions after 3.6, I guess Python 3.6, uh, you can basically define a f string, which is basically you can write a string, and if you just put a f uh, before the string starts, you can define a variable inside that string, and you just need to put it under curly braces. So this is like this. So whatever the level comes, I can print it like this. Okay. And after this, let's also try to use the Quarks argument. So we will just say something similar to what we were doing. So for key value in Quarks.items, print key and value. Okay. So this is our function. Let's define it, and yeah, it runs successfully. Now we can use this particular logging function for different kinds of logs, and let me showcase how does this work. Let's say one is an event. uh, Level can be anything. Level can be an error, so let's say there's an error in caps. So this is our level argument, and then I can say uh, for error it could be error code. So you might be aware of different types of error codes like 404 or 500. You might have seen these in during a lot of applications. So let's say error underscore code, and let's put it as 404, let's say. Then we can also say source, and source could be a string. We can say source is server. Okay. So what it will do, it will print the level first and then any number of arguments that I'm putting. So if I run this now, you can see this is a valid function because my log level is error, then my error code is there, the source is server. But now using the same function, say logging, now first of all, let's put some other kind of logging level. So it could be an impression. And what does impression do? So this is a log level basically. So whenever someone view our application, we just log it. So let's say we might want to provide an IP address, and it could be something like 127.0.0.1, let's say. Okay. uh, whatever the IP address, and let's actually put it under uh, a string. Yeah. And we can say username. Whoever has visited our website, we can actually provide a name as well. Let's put a name called John, and also we can put a time, and we can provide a UTC timestamp here, whatever. So, or we can just, for simplicity, we can use a string. Okay, so uh, let's say just 10.00.00. Okay, so now this is a completely different set of information. Obviously, this is also a logging event, and here in the previous one, we were basically logging an error. In this scenario, we are logging an impression or a view of our application, and both kind of events can be logged using the same function because we just want the level to be defined. Apart from that, we can use any variable number of keyword based arguments, and if I just run it, you'd see this is also running perfectly fine. So this is a good example to showcase how star quirks or star args are used. So in any scenario where you are not sure about what are the arguments might be, there could be multiple arguments which can come in. There could be variable number of arguments. So multiple arguments is not an issue because you can define it uh, while defining the function itself. But if it is a variable number, like sometimes just two of the variables would be required or two of the arguments are required, sometimes five of the arguments are required. So it could vary a lot. In those scenarios, star args or star quirks are very useful. And the difference between star args and star quirks is just the keywords. So if you want to use keywords based arguments, then you use star quirks like we have done in our scenario, in our example scenario of logging function. But if you are not like you do not care about the keywords, you just want a positional argument. So positional arguments mean just like whatever way you are defining them, that position or the order will be maintained or preserved, and they will be used in such in that way. So if you see here, so args is basically a list. It's kind of a list. It's an iterable. I won't say it's a list. It's just an iterable. Like you can iterate through it, and there's a specific order, and the order is basically how I am providing it in our function, and it preserves the order. So this is used in cases where you do not need a keyword or you do not require a keywords to be defined, and you just want to use a positional non-keyword based arguments, and it could vary. The number of the arguments can vary. In such scenarios, you use star args. So that's it. So I hope this particular thing is useful for now, because a lot of the time what happens is when you try to use some libraries in Python, you might see like in the documentation, a lot of times these star args, star quirks are used. Even in those cases, it would actually help you to understand like if there are additional arguments that can be used as input of that particular function or a method. And also this is very important for interviews because there are so many questions that can come around this topic. So hopefully this is clear now. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comment, and stay tuned for more awesome tech videos. Bye bye. Have a great day. Thanks.